What's up, y'all? Alvin here, and I never go fishing without this stuff.
I tell the good jokes.
All right, so I like to think about this like this is my fly fishing everyday carry items. I don't always carry every single one of these things, but I've got some variation on all of them anytime I go fishing. So somebody calls me up and says, hey man, let's go fishing tomorrow morning, or let's go fishing this afternoon. Sometimes I'm trying to grab everything and run out the door as quickly as I can. And if I forget one of these things, I'm usually sad. So this is kind of like the bare essentials. Obviously, you're gonna have your rod and your reel and your flies and your fly boxes, waders, boots, all that type of stuff. But this is more kind of like the small stuff that you may forget. And this is kind of some of the stuff that I'll just keep in my box or in my bag at all times so that I don't forget. So first up would be my clippers, some type of clippers, nippers, and then something to attach them to yourself so that you don't lose them. I like this one by Gerber. I can clip this on my belt, and these are some pretty beefy nippers. Now, you really don't have to have something fancy like this. Even a pair of fingernail clippers will work, but you definitely want to have some way to attach them to yourself or to your bag. So, even if it's just a piece of fly line or heavy mono, so that you don't drop them. But yeah, just something that you can cut the line with, You got to change flies, you got to rebuild leaders, and if you forget your clippers, that's usually a bit of a bummer. Now, moving along, but kind of staying in the same vein of things for cutting, I usually like to have a pocket knife. Sometimes I'll have a pocket knife and my clippers, but more often than not, if I have room, I'll have my pocket knife and some type of multi-tool. So I like this little guy here. This one is another Gerber tool. It has a knife, but it also has screwdriver, scissors, a lot of the kind of basic stuff. And this one's pretty cool because it fits right in your pocket. This one is called the arm bar drive. I'll leave a link to a lot of this stuff in the description if you want to check these things out. Yeah, something like this is nice because I've got a knife to cut things with. I've got scissors, I got screwdrivers, and you can even go with something bigger if you have room, and maybe even have pliers, like this guy here. This may be a bit much for just putting in your pocket, but if you're fishing out of a boat and you actually have room for something like this, there's been times when I'm really glad that I've had some pliers. My reel fell apart, a bolt fell off of something and I needed to tighten it up, and it was good to have a tool to do that. But like I said, this is probably not something that you would want to carry if you're trying to keep everything in your pockets. Probably go with something more like this or maybe like this. Another thing that we almost always have, and pliers, heavy duty beefy fishing pliers. I'll have those a lot of times in the boat with me, like if I'm on my skiff, but I almost always end up needing to have a pair of hemostats. And this is a nice pair of hemostats that I got like 20 years ago. They're still working great. So that's one reason to spend a little bit more money on the hemostats. But even when you have a nice pair of fishing pliers, a lot of times what'll happen is a fish will get hooked down deep and you just can't get the big pliers down into the fish's mouth. So that's why I always have a pair of hemostats, and it's probably a good idea to have the hemostats attached to something that you can attach to yourself so that you don't drop them. Like I said, I've had these for 20 years. Somehow or another, I have not dropped them, but I've lost plenty of other pairs in the meantime. Okay, so a little bit more kind of tackle specific is Tippet. So this is not, I don't have these in my pockets, but if I don't have my bag or one of my fishing boxes where I can keep all this tippet, I'll put some of the smaller spools in my pocket. So I may or may not have a leader when I leave the house, but I always have tippet. If I have my rod rigged up, I've probably got a leader on it already. So, you know, if I need to replace the leader, if I've got all these spools of Tippet, I could actually build a leader from scratch if I needed to. But more often than not, you just need to replace a Tippet or the first couple of sections for your leader. So just having 2 or 3 spools of Tippet will make your life a lot easier. Now, speaking of Tippet and leaders, another tool that is really, really nice to have is some type of knot tying tool. And I only use a knot tying tool for one knot, and that is for tying a blood knot. So if you need to replace a leader, a blood knot tool is gonna make it so much easier. A lot of people don't like to use the loop-to-loop connections, or maybe the loop breaks and you need to tie a butt section on and put a loop on that so you can loop your leader back on. Nail knot tool, when you're out in the field, makes it so much easier. I have done it, you know, by finding a stick that was about the right size and doing that. The other thing about the nail knot tool is practice those nail knots at home so that you're not fumbling when you're out there on the water. So yeah, nail knot tool. Another small tool that really comes in handy that I forget to bring a lot of times is the hook sharpener. And, you know, especially if you're fishing for bass or saltwater fish, larger hooks, and you're banging around on stuff, it's really nice to be able to sharpen that hook up while you're out on the water. Now, a lot of times trout flies, the smaller, thinner wire hooks, they don't have to be sharpened nearly as often, and a lot of times those hooks will end up breaking before they get dulled out. But definitely for bass and saltwater fishing, you want to have a hook sharpener with you. All right, another thing that is pretty obvious, but sometimes not, is a good pair of polarized glasses. Polarized glasses, I think, are essential equipment, whether you're sight casting for redfish or bonefish, or, you know, you're bass fishing, whether you're wade fishing or you're fishing out of a boat. They do a lot for you. Number one, they cut the glare from the sun that bounces off the water. So if you need to see a fish, then you're gonna see a fish a lot better with polarized glasses than you would without polarized glasses. If you're just wade fishing and you're night sight fishing, polarized glasses will help you determine whether there's a rock or a log or something in your way, or if that dark looking water over there is a deep hole or just a shallow puddle. So I do think that polarized glasses are essential fishing gear, and I never go fishing without them. When it comes to polarized glasses, you got to keep them clean. So some type of cloth, yeah, you can do it on your shirt, but if your shirt's dirty and sweaty, you know, you're just going to be rubbing more dirt into your glasses. So I like to keep some type of microfiber cloth, keep it dry, and keep it safe somewhere in a pocket or in your bag so that you can clean off your glasses. Essential gear right there. All right, so I'm sure I probably forgot something, because that's kind of how it goes. But if I'm running out the door at the last minute, if I've got all this stuff, I feel pretty good that I'm gonna have everything I need once I get on the water. If that helps somebody out there, definitely give the video a thumbs up. If you have not, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next video. And in the meantime, good luck on the water.